I think it is time he met his real father." That sentence hit harder than any foul ball to the ribs. It landed soft, like she was offering to pass the butter, but it detonated something in my chest that I still cannot name. We were sitting at our usual Sunday brunch spot, Mara, Ryan, and I, on the patio of that pretentious cafe she liked because the napkins were cloth and the coffee came in minimalist cups with no handles. Ryan was halfway through a tower of lemon ricotta pancakes, earbuds in one ear, scrolling through something on his phone. 15 years old, moody, with a shoulder twitch he picked up from baseball drills I taught him when he was 10. He used to practice swing mechanics with me in the garage until it got dark, and now I was just the guy who paid the mortgage. "I am sorry," I asked, but not because I did not hear her. I just wanted to believe I had not. Mara did not even look up. She buttered her toast with that deliberate calm she used when she was about to tell me we were trying something new with a budget. "He has been asking. It is natural, Mark. He is curious. I think it is time." That is when the blood in my body slowed. I thought I was his father. I said, "You were." Not even a pause. But now he wants to know where he really comes from. And just like that, 15 years of school pickups, cleat tying, late-night fever runs, college saving plans, and being the one man Ryan could count on, all condensed into a polite obituary. "You were." There was no affair, no big fight, no warning. Just a subtle rebranding of my identity served over Eggs Benedict. I looked at Ryan. He did not even flinch. He did not hear us. Or maybe he did and pretended he did not, which somehow cut deeper. I did not make a scene. I did not demand answers. I did not flip the table or storm out like a bad soap opera. That would have made it too easy for Mara. She would have turned me into the angry stepdad. No, I just sat there and finished my black coffee. It tasted like wet coins. That night, I packed. No dramatic speeches, no calls to friends. I left my wallet, my house keys, even my Apple Watch on the nightstand. I left a single handwritten note on the kitchen counter. "Do not look for me. You will not like what you find." I could still hear the ceiling fan creaking above me as I zipped up my duffel. The fan I installed myself, like everything else in that house. The shelving, the fire pit, and the herb garden I never cared about but she insisted on. We built it together, or at least I thought we did. Before I walked out, I paused in the hallway outside Ryan's room. The door was slightly cracked. He was on his Xbox, yelling into the microphone, calling someone a bot. I remembered when that room was painted with stars, when I used to read to him from that dog-eared copy of Where the Red Fern Grows. He used to ask me what loyalty meant. I guess now he knows. I did not say goodbye. I just turned and left. By the time I crossed the Oregon border and hit the empty stretch near Boise, I realized something strange. I was not crying. I was not yelling or muttering to myself like in the movies. I was just hollow, clean, like a whiteboard wiped down with one of those squeaky felt erasers. They thought I would linger. They thought I would fight, to stay in their lies like a dog scratching at a locked door. But they had forgotten something. I taught that boy how to hold his ground on the pitcher's mound. I taught him to shut out noise. And now I was doing exactly that. I drove in silence. 14 hours of interstate, winding roads, switchbacks, and memories clawing at the back of my skull like rats in a burlap sack. The cabin sat in northern Colorado near a town so small the gas station doubled as the post office. I had inherited it from my Uncle Walt after his heart gave out on a deer trail. I had only been here once before, 15 years ago, when Ryan was a toddler. Mara hated the smell of firewood and the lack of Wi-Fi. She said it gave her migraines. Perfect. When I pulled up the gravel path, the place looked like it had not exhaled since Walt died. Shutters hanging loose like drunk arms. Chimney half collapsed, snow crusted along the eaves like it had made a home there. I parked the truck, killed the engine, and just sat listening. For what? I do not know. Maybe for the last part of myself snapping off. The front door did not creak. It groaned like it knew I was not leaving this time. I did not unpack right away. I walked around first, fingers brushing the scarred bark of the trees, boots sinking into the crunchy frostbitten grass. The air smelled like pine rot and mercy. The next morning I started working, not because I had to, but because I needed to. Splitting logs by hand became my therapy. The rhythmic thunk of the axe biting through it cleared something in my chest. I rebuilt the generator from Walt's old schematics in the tool shed. The roof leaked, so I patched it. The floorboards creaked, so I nailed them down. Every fix was a sentence I never got to say. I burned the note Mara left in her letter tray from 2 Christmases ago. Let us make this year about gratitude. I found it wedged behind the bread box when I cleaned out my bag of old receipts. The irony made me laugh, sharp and bitter. There was no phone signal unless you stood barefoot on the metal roof during a thunderstorm. I tried it once, just once, nothing, and good. Let them wonder. Let them pace around that silent house I paid for, checking the driveway, expecting my truck to come back. Let them think. I kept a journal. Not to write about them, but to remember how to talk to myself. I made a list. Things I taught Ryan. It filled 2 pages. How to bunt. How to check tire pressure. How to shake a man's hand like you mean it. How to apologize without excuses. How to leave quietly. Most nights I sat by the fire with a tin of beans and a bottle of wild turkey Walt left behind. I would sip, stare at the flames, and feel the numbness settle deeper. Not the bad kind, but the kind that finally let your jaw unclench. I found one of Ryan's old drawings in my wallet. He was 6. It was stick figures. Me, him, and a weirdly triangular dog. Underneath he had written my hero. I stared at that drawing for an hour, then folded it in half and slid it under a floorboard beneath the bed. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I never wanted to find it by accident. People think revenge is loud, rage-filled, explosive. Mine was quiet. It looked like a man fixing a roof alone in the Rockies while the world forgot what he meant. And that is what made it so sharp. I was not hiding. I was erasing myself intentionally. And every log I split, every screw I drove into the siding, every breath I took in that bitter air whispered the same thing. You had me. You lost me. You will never find me again. The first time he called, Ryan was beaming. Not in that goofy kid way either. No, this was teenage bravado trying to mask something raw underneath. Hope, probably. Her desperation dressed up as finally. He said he wants to see me, Ryan told Mara as he scraped leftover Alfredo into the sink. Wants to come out next weekend. Mara smiled too quickly. That is great, sweetie. Really great. She went upstairs that night and cried in the bathroom with the water running like Ryan would not hear. Plans were made. Steak night, his favorite root beer. Ryan even cleaned out the garage, muttering that maybe they could work on the old motorcycle together. He used to ride. Right. Mara nodded. She did not mention that the last time Ryan's biological father touched a wrench, it was to pawn a socket set. She also did not mention how many times she had paid his rent under the table, or that the only consistent thing about him was his inconsistency. Friday came. Ryan waited on the porch for 3 hours. No text, no call, nothing. At 9:07 p.m., Mara got a message that just read, "Sorry, work stuff, rain check." Ryan did not say a word, just stood up, went inside, and microwaved leftover chicken nuggets. When she asked if he wanted to talk about it, he replied with a blank, "He is busy, it is fine." But it was not. You could see the shift, small, almost surgical. He started checking his phone every 5 minutes, every buzz, every ding. By Monday, he had a new date picked out. He said next weekend. Swear. This time, Mara did not prep the dinner. She did not remind Ryan to vacuum the car. She just sat in her robe on the couch sipping wine at 2 o'clock in the afternoon like it was normal. A sitcom played on mute. When Ryan asked why she looked tired, she blamed allergies. The second cancellation came via voicemail. A slur something about a friend's birthday. Bad directions. Next week for sure. Ryan laughed. Not the funny kind, more like an inhale that did not know where to land. Guess he is bad with calendars, he said. He did not wait on the porch that third time, but he did wear the shirt Mara said made him look sharp. He paced the house like a man waiting for a verdict. When the clock hit 10:23 p.m., he peeled it off and stuffed it into the laundry bin like it insulted him. The fourth time, no excuse even came. By then, he stopped talking about the guy altogether, but he also stopped doing other things. He skipped practice, did not respond to Coach Callahan's texts. He used to spend hours hitting balls into the backyard net. Now the net sagged, wind rattled, untouched. Mara noticed he stopped calling her mom. Just yeah or whatever. He did not fight, did not slam doors, just went quiet. And that silence spread into the walls, the carpet, the echo in the kitchen. It replaced the creaks Mark used to fix, the background whistle of his old kettle, the way he hummed off-key when doing dishes. The house became quieter than it had ever been and somehow louder with absence. Mara tried once to bring up Mark. He always showed up, she said gently. Ryan did not look up from his cereal. Yeah, well, people get tired of showing up. And that was it. They traded the man who built forts in the yard, taught Ryan how to oil a glove, and snuck extra bacon on his plate when Mara was not looking for a name on a birth certificate who could not even bother to reply with full sentences. Mark had vanished. Yes, but this new ghost they had invited in, he never even showed up. And slowly, quietly, Ryan began to realize the cruelest truth of all. They did not lose Mark. They threw him away. It started with the pipes. They burst behind the downstairs bathroom wall one frosty night in January. Water crept into the hallway like it was looking for Mark. Mara stood there in slippers, hands shaking as she fumbled for towels and cursed under her breath. She had never even known where the shut-off valve was. Mark always handled it quietly. Before anyone noticed, Ryan did not come downstairs. He had his headphones on, deep in some online game where loss did not mean mildew or insurance deductibles. The plumber arrived 2 days later. He charged triple. He said the insulation was amateur hour. Mara signed the check with a look on her face like she had swallowed gravel. Then came the gas bill. $614.37. Mark used to check the thermostat like it was a sacred ritual. Ryan liked the heat cranked, and Mark would always mutter, "We are not baking bread, kid." Now the heat ran non-stop. Mara never thought to check the settings. Neither did Ryan. By the second week of February, the mortgage bounced. Automatic payment failed. Then the car insurance lapsed. A stack of unpaid envelopes piled on the kitchen counter, red-stamped, urgent, full of terms like final notice and risk of cancellation. Mara started staying up late, staring at spreadsheets like they were ancient puzzles. Her jaw clicked from clenching. The wine bottles under the sink multiplied. Meanwhile, Ryan got detention twice. First for shoving a kid in the locker room, then for skipping sixth period entirely. Mara found out when the school left a voicemail that began with, "We have tried to reach you," and ended with suspension if this pattern continues. When she confronted him, he shrugged. "Why do you care now?" That one sentence knocked the wind out of her more than the mortgage statement. She did not reply. She could not. That night, she called Mark twice. His voicemail picked up like always, calm, boring, the exact same message he had had for 5 years. "Hi, this is Mark. Leave it at the beep." She did not leave a message. She called again the next morning, and that time she did. "Mark, I know you said not to look for you. I get it, I do. But things are hard. Ryan is struggling. He is angry. I do not know how to reach him. You always could. Just if you could talk to him. That is all. I am not asking you to come back. I am just asking for your voice." She ended the call with a whisper, "Please." No response. She emailed nothing. She sent a letter, long, handwritten, in shaky cursive. She wrote about the pipe, the bills, the bruises she saw on Ryan's knuckles. She told him she missed the quiet competence, the presence, that she had never realized how much of the house was balanced on his back until he walked away. Still nothing. Mark had vanished like a veteran ghost, left no forwarding address, no trail, just an absence that now filled every square inch of their house. His drawer in the bedroom was still half open. She left it like that, too afraid to touch the socks inside as if they might disintegrate. Ryan stopped eating dinner at the table. He microwaved whatever was around and ate standing up, hunched over the counter, chewing like it was a punishment. His eyes never met hers. One night, Mara found him asleep in the laundry room, curled up with Mark's old sweatshirt, the one with the oil stain on the sleeve. She sat down beside him, leaned against the dryer, and did not say a word. The house that used to hum with quiet laughter and the occasional sarcastic jab now felt like it held its breath every time the front door opened, hoping maybe it was him. But it never was, and the weight of what they had done settled like dust on every unused chair, every unpaid bill, every echo in the hollow walls. It was a Tuesday when he finally arrived. No fanfare, no heads up, just a dented black Impala pulling up at 8:47 p.m., headlights flickering like a dying firefly. Ryan stood in the window, half in disbelief, half afraid to believe it all. Mara was already in her robe, mascara smudged, wine glass untouched for once. She pulled the door open before he had a chance to knock. "Travis," she said, her voice low and flat. "Hey," he muttered like they were old friends running into each other at a gas station. He swayed just slightly, not enough for someone to call him out directly, but just enough for her to smell the cheap whiskey clinging to his breath like a second skin. Ryan stepped forward, hesitated, then awkwardly, "Hey." Travis turned, blinked at him for a second, then smirked. "Well, damn, look at you, tall. You play ball?" "Yeah," Ryan said, a flicker of pride in his voice. "Shortstop. Nice. I used to pitch." Travis lied. Mara's lips twitched but did not open. They stayed in the living room for about 20 minutes. Travis talked fast, loud about opportunities and reconnecting, and how fatherhood is a marathon, not a sprint. Every few minutes he would rub his eyes and ask for a beer, then change his mind and ask for cash instead. "You got a Motel 6 around here?" he asked, scratching the back of his neck. Just for a night or two while I get settled. I was in Portland yesterday, job stuff, lot going on. Mara handed him $80 in silence. Ryan offered to show him the garage, the batting cage setup Mark had helped him build. Travis nodded but waved it off. Yeah, maybe tomorrow, kid. Got jet lag. From Portland. Do not be a smartass. Ryan flinched, not from the words, but from the tone. It had teeth. Mark never used that tone. Not once. By 10:15, Travis was gone, back to his car, grumbling about directions and complaining that his phone charger mysteriously stopped working. Ryan went to bed, confused but not defeated. Not yet. Then came the phone call. It was the third night. Travis had shown up again, this time smelling like roadkill and regret. He asked for more money. Something about a storage unit in Idaho, unpaid tickets, some overdue child support nonsense he claimed was not real. Mara gave him nothing. Later that night, Ryan came downstairs for water. He paused in the hallway when he heard Travis's voice through the barely cracked patio door. Back turned, pacing like a man pretending to have a plan. Yeah, I am at the house now. No, it is easy. She still feels guilty. I will squeeze a few hundred more out of her. The kid soft looks up to me already. Ain't going to be hard. He don't ask questions. Dumb as a rock, honestly. What? You think I am staying long? Hell no. Once I get what I need, I am out. Ryan did not move. Not for a long time. He stood there with the glass of water shaking in his hand, condensation dripping down his wrist. The next morning, Travis was gone. Left behind a cigarette butt on the porch, a half-eaten box of pizza on the counter, and a smell in the air like moldy sweat and second-hand lies. Ryan did not ask where he went. Mara did not offer. She just looked at him across the breakfast table and saw it in his eyes. Something had cracked. I guess he had stuff to do, Ryan muttered, staring into his cereal. Mara did not correct him, but that night she found the batting cage dismantled, poles unscrewed, net folded like it had never been used. The only thing left was Mark's old glove still hanging on the peg by the garage door. Ryan did not touch it. He walked past it like it did not exist. Only now it did. It loomed because now he knew he had not swapped one dad for another. He had traded a lighthouse for a matchstick, and it had already burned out. It started small, like most things that end up cutting deep. Mrs. Eldridge, the 80-year-old neighbor with binoculars practically fused to her face, asked Ryan one morning while he was taking out the trash, "Is Mark all right? Haven't seen him around?" Ryan mumbled something about him traveling, eyes glued to the recycling bin like it could swallow him whole. She nodded, lips pressed tight, then shuffled back inside, curtains twitching behind her as he turned away. The next week at the grocery store, Mara ran into Dennis from 2 blocks down. Mark used to help him with his sprinkler lines every spring. "Hey," Dennis said, his cart squeaking. "Tell Mark thanks again for that lawn cedar tip. Saved me a fortune last season. He is still around." Mara hesitated. "He is taking time for himself." Dennis frowned. Did not think he was the me time. He was not. That was the problem. The whispers grew legs. At church, a woman asked if Ryan was doing okay without his father. Not stepfather, just father. At the diner, Mark's old breakfast order, black coffee, scrambled eggs, wheat toast, no butter, stopped being made. The waitress, Carla, used to have it out for him before he even walked in the door. "Mrs. Sarcasm," she told another waitress. "Always tip 30%, even when his eggs came out cold." Ryan's baseball coach, Coach Callahan, pulled him aside after practice one evening. What was left of it anyway? Ryan had not shown up in weeks, and when he did, he moved like a shadow, pretending to be a boy. "Look," Callahan said, handing him a scuffball. "I do not know what is going on at home, but I will tell you this. You were locked in when Mark was in those bleachers. Focused, disciplined. That man gave a damn. And you knew it." Ryan looked down at the ball. He did not say anything. "Kid, you have got to ask yourself," Callahan continued, "who is going to be proud of this version of you?" That hit harder than he expected. The next day, Ryan cut fourth period and got caught vaping behind the maintenance shed with a kid named Luke, who once punched a fire alarm just to see if it worked. Ryan had never even held a cigarette before. But now he did not care if people saw the spiral because they were already watching it. His teachers emailed home. Grades plummeting, participation non-existent. His English teacher wrote, "Ryan stopped turning in assignments entirely. He looks distant." And distant was the right word. Not angry, not rebellious, just not there. Mara found him in the garage one evening, sitting on a folding chair facing the workbench. He was just staring at it like something was supposed to appear. Like Mark might suddenly walk in with a drill and a dad joke and make it all make sense again. "You okay?" she asked. He did not answer, just kept staring. On the wall above the bench hung a single nail, empty. The wooden plaque that once held Mark's old coaching whistle used to be there. Mark took it with him. Not out of spite, but because no one else had earned the right to keep it. Later that night, Mara overheard two other parents whispering in the stands during a school fundraiser. They whispered, "Shame what happened. He raised the boy like his own. She let him walk away. And for what? A ghost of a man?" Mara pretended not to hear, but Ryan heard worse. He heard everyone at the gas station, at the field, at the hardware store where Mark used to buy mulch by the ton for the backyard projects no one appreciated until they crumbled. And with every glance, every lowered voice, every "did you hear?" the hole inside him grew colder because guilt was not loud. It was quiet. It settled in your bones, and it stayed. It was almost midnight when the dam finally broke. Ryan came home from school, silent again. Shoes thudded against the wall, backpack slung across the dining room chair. No words, no eye contact, just the sound of a spoon clinking against a cereal bowl he did not want. Mara watched from the kitchen, arms folded, mug untouched. She tried asking about his day 3 times this week. No answers, not even a shrug anymore, just that hollow-eyed silence, until she made the mistake of saying too softly, "You know, if you ever want to talk." "I am talking," Ryan exploded, flipping the bowl across the table. Milk splattered across unpaid bills and a stack of unopened college brochures Mara had been too afraid to show him. "You just do not listen, Ryan. I want him back," he roared, his voice cracking somewhere between rage and heartbreak. "I want Mark back. I do not care what you said or what you thought was best. He was my dad, not that drunk loser you tried to replace him with." Mara's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her eyes welled up instantly. I did not try to replace him. I thought you wanted. I was a kid. I did not know what the hell I wanted." He was pacing now, hands in his hair, but I knew he would never leave unless someone pushed him. And you did. You let him walk like he did not matter, like he did not build this entire damn family. Mara collapsed into the nearest chair. Her breath came in gasps like her lungs had forgotten how to function. "You think I do not know that? I wake up every morning and expect to hear him humming while the coffee brews. I still check for his stupid slippers next to the bed. I know what I did." Ryan stood frozen, fist shaking at his sides, eyes wide, scared of what had just come out of him and terrified of how much of it was true. Then, almost in unison, they reached for their phones. Mara dialed first. The speaker rang once, twice. "You have reached Mark. Leave a message." She hung up, shaking, hands damp. Ryan grabbed his phone, stared at the contact labeled "Just Dad," thumb hovering. He called voicemail. He left a message. "Mark, it is me. I want to talk, please." Then another. Then Mara left one. Then another from Ryan. Then 3 more. One was just breathing. One was just sobbing. By 2 o'clock in the morning, they had left 17 voicemails between them. Pleas, apologies, begging confessions neither of them had made even to themselves before tonight. "Mark, I did not mean it," Ryan said in the 6th. "When I asked about him, about my biological dad, it was not because I did not love you. I was confused and dumb, and now I cannot breathe right without you here." Mara's 9th was a whisper through tears. "You were right about everything. The house is falling apart. The kid is falling apart, and I am too. I was just too proud to say it until now." They sat side by side on the floor afterward, backs against the kitchen cabinets, feet numb, faces red. The clock ticked. The silence was deafening. Then the phone buzzed. Both of them jolted upright. A text, but not from Mark. "Spam. Congratulations. You have been pre-approved for a..." Mara dropped the phone. Ryan curled up, forehead on his knees. The voicemail line had become a graveyard for apologies too late because Mark was not ignoring them. He had simply evolved beyond them. And once a man like that moves on, he does not look back. By early spring, the deck was done. Mark had rebuilt it from the foundation up. New planks sanded smooth, treated with cedar oil he had bartered from the hardware store owner for fixing a busted backup generator. Every nail sunk into that, which felt like a quiet punctuation mark at the end of an old sentence. He had ripped out the rotted pieces himself, no gloves, just hands, sweat, and resolve. The trout smoking came next. He had never done it before, just something he read about in an old outdoor manual he found tucked behind a broken cabinet. Took him 3 tries to get it right. The first batch came out tasting like rubber tires. The second turned into mush, but the third was perfect, smoky, delicate, flaky, seasoned just enough to make him wonder why the hell he had not started doing this 30 years ago. He ate it with black coffee and scrambled eggs each morning. Quiet, deliberate, like a ritual. And the sketchbook. God, the sketchbook. He used to draw years ago, back before life got busy with baseball practices and clogged gutters and can you pick up almond milk on your way home? Requests. Now, every night by the fire, he filled page after page. Trees, mountains, a fox he saw once that stared at him like it knew his entire story. One page had a silhouette of a boy holding a bat, back turned, staring up at stadium lights. He did not sign that one. Most evenings, he would wander into town, down to a small diner called Rosie's, named after the original owner's dog, not the owner herself, who insisted on being called Mrs. J, and never smiled unless you made her laugh without trying. But Kendra, the new waitress, 20 years his junior, with a tattoo of a paper crane on her wrist and a warm way of saying Mark, like she had known it all her life. She talked to him like he was not half a ghost. "You always sit in the same booth," she said once, topping off his coffee. "I like routine." "You like hiding?" she replied, smirking. He smiled at that. First real smile in months. It creased his face in a way that reminded him he was still alive. She did not ask about his past. She did not need to. The lines around his eyes told enough of the story. And he did not volunteer much, just that he was retired, had some free time, and was learning to do things slower. One morning, just after sunrise, he sat on the new deck with a mug of hot coffee wrapped in an old hoodie, listening to the wind move through the pine. His phone, silent all night, buzzed once, then again, then again. He did not look. He did not need to. By now, the call display was muscle memory. Mara Ryan, home. He let it vibrate until it stopped, then turned the phone off completely, set it upside down on the table, and went back to sketching a trout mid-leap from water. The silence was not hollow anymore. It was earned. Because peace is not always soft. Sometimes it is forged like steel. Sometimes it is what happens when you stop letting people shape you like clay. And for the first time in years, Mark was not performing. He was not proving. He was just being. And while the world he left behind crumbled under the weight of regret, he built a new one from the ashes, alone, solid, untouched. The letter came folded in thirds, sealed in a plain white envelope, addressed in shaky, uncertain block letters. Mark H., Post Office Box 72, Spruce Holyoke. It sat in the mailbox for 3 days before Mark picked it up. He only checked the box when he needed to, usually once a week. Bills, mostly catalogs. He never ordered. A few ads from the local lumberyard, but this one stood out. No return address, no stamp either. It had been hand-delivered. Small-town postmaster must have recognized the name and tossed it in the box out of courtesy. Everyone knew everyone up here. Everyone also knew better than to ask Mark questions. He held the envelope for a long time before opening it. Something about the pressure of the paper, the way the ink bled just slightly in places already told him what it was. Inside, one page torn from a school notebook. Faint blue lines. The handwriting was not perfect, slanted, some words pressed down too hard, but he would have known it anywhere. "Mark, you were always my father. I do not know why I did not see it before. Maybe I did. Maybe I just did not want it to be true because it hurt too much knowing I failed you. I was stupid. I let the wrong man in and pushed the right one out. You never raised your voice. You never left until I gave you a reason to. I know it is probably too late, but I had to say it. Please come home. Ryan." Mark read it once, then again, then slowly, deliberately, a third time. He did not cry, he did not smile, he did not mutter anything about forgiveness or second chances. He just sat in the wooden chair by the fireplace, letter resting in one hand, the other absently stroking the bark smooth armrest he had carved months ago. Outside, the wind was soft, the kind of evening hush that made pine needles hum. He looked toward the window, the same one he always stared through during storms. Snow still clung to the ridge beyond the creek. A deer grazed quietly at the edge of the trees, unaware or maybe uncaring that it was being watched. After a long moment, Mark leaned forward and fed the letter to the fire. It caught quickly, curling at the corners like it was relieved to disappear. He watched the flames fold the words into ash. The sentence, "Please come home," burned last, the ink crackling into dust. He stood, stretched his back, and poured himself a mug of strong black coffee. Not whiskey, not wine. Coffee ground that morning. Hot, bitter grounding. Then he stepped outside, sat on the rebuilt deck, and watched the stars come out one by one until the sky felt full again. Because some things do not get fixed. Some doors once closed do not creak back open. Some fathers stop chasing the echo of their name. And that night, Ryan's apology did not fall on deaf ears. It fell on a man who had already forgiven but moved on anyway. The last time Mara had been in that grocery store with Mark, he made a scene in the produce section. Nothing dramatic, just that low-level kind of scene only someone who knew him could detect. A quiet debate with the butcher about why no one in Oregon seemed to understand how to properly trim a rack of lamb. She would laugh, then told him to stop acting like a New Yorker. He replied, "I am not acting." Now, 6 months later, she stood frozen in aisle 4 with Ryan beside her, staring at the man who used to argue about lamb fat like it mattered. Mark, he looked different. Not younger, not older, just clearer. Like whatever weight had once pressed between his shoulders had lifted and evaporated into the cold Colorado air he now called home. He wore a flannel shirt tucked in too neatly, jeans without a crease, boots that actually looked worn for once. His cart had a few practical things: canned beans, almonds, a newspaper, a thermos. No distractions, no junk, no chaos. Mara spotted him first. The breath left her lungs so fast she almost dropped the carton of eggs in her hand. Ryan's eyes buried in his phone. He did not see him until he looked up at her reaction. Then his phone slipped from his grip. Mark saw them. That much was certain. He glanced up. No flicker of surprise. Just a brief pause, like spotting a vaguely familiar painting you no longer liked. He nodded, polite, civil, distant. And then he turned and walked past them. No words, no hand on Ryan's shoulder, no clenched jaw. No, I told you so. Just silence. Ryan's lips parted and something fragile cracked in his chest. Dad. It came out like a ghost of a name. A word wrapped in guilt and time and the kind of love that shows up far too late. Mark did not stop, did not turn, just kept walking. The wheels of his cart squeaked once, then faded into the hum of the fluorescent lights above aisle 5. Bulk grains and quiet exits. Ryan stood there motionless, lips trembling. That one word. Dad, still floating somewhere in the refrigerated air. Mara reached for him, hesitated, then lowered her hand. Nothing she could say would fill that gap. Nothing could glue back what they had shattered. They checked out in silence. Outside in the parking lot, the sun was low. Everything glowed gold, but nothing felt warm. As they loaded their bags into the trunk, Ryan finally spoke. He is never coming back, is he? Mara did not lie. No. And that was it. Mark returned to Colorado later that afternoon. Paperwork filed, signatures made. The house, his house, officially transferred, wiped clean from his name. He did not drive by it, did not check the mailbox, did not even glance at the street sign. Just did what he came to do and vanished again. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but because forgetting is its own form of justice. And for Mara and Ryan, there would be no grand confrontation. No final blow-up, no dramatic closure, just a man with steady hands and no more questions. A silence so heavy it said,